Okay, so let's discuss the Yeti some more, shall we? In 1832, James Princeps, Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, published Trekker B. H. Hodgson's account of his experiences in northern Nepal. His local guide spotted a tall bipedal creature covered with long dark hair, which seemed to flee in fear. Hodgson concluded it was an orangutan. An early record of reported footprints appeared in 1899 in Lawrence Waddell's Among the Himalayas. Waddell reported his guide's description of a large ape-like creature that left the prints, which Waddell thought were made by a bear. Waddell heard stories of bipedal ape-like creatures, but wrote that none, however, of the many Tibetans I have interrogated on this subject could ever give me an authentic case. Of the most superficial investigation, it always resolved into something that somebody heard tell of. The frequency of reports increased during the early 20th century when Westerners began making determined attempts to scale the many mountains in the area and occasionally reported seeing odd creatures or strange tracks. In 1925, N.A. Tombazi, a photographer and member of the Royal Geographical Society, writes that he saw a creature at about 15,000 feet, 4,600 meters, near Zimu Glacier. Tombazi later wrote that he observed the creature from about 200 to 300 yards, 180 to 270 meters, for about a minute. Unquestionably, the figure in outline was exactly like a human being, walking upright and stopping occasionally to pull up some dwarf rhododendron bushes. It showed up dark against the snow, and as far as I could make out, wore no clothes. About 2 hours later, Tombazi and his companions descended the mountain and saw the creature's prints, described as similar in shape to those of a man, but only 6 to 7 inches long by 4 inches wide. The prints were undoubtedly those of a biped. During the autumn of 1937, John Hunt and Pasang Sherpa, later Pasang Dawa Lama, encountered footprints on the approaches to and at the Zimu Gap above the Zimu Glacier that were thought to belong to a pair of Yetis. In June 1944, C.L. Cook, his wife Margaret, and a group of porters encountered a very large bipedal prints in soft mud at 14,000 feet just below the Singalila Ridge, which the porters said were of the Jungli Admi wild man. The creature had come up through the bushes on the steep hillside from Nepal and crossed the track before continuing up to the ridge. Cook wrote, "We laid Margaret's sunglasses beside each print to indicate its size and took photographs. These prints were strange and larger than any normal human foot, 14 inches heel to toe, with the great toe set back to one side, a first toe also large, and 3 little toes closely bunched together." Western interest in the Yeti peaked dramatically in the 1950s. While attempting to scale Mount Everest in 1951, Eric Shipton took photographs of a number of large prints in the snow at about 6,000 meters, 20,000 feet, above sea level. These photos have been subject to intense scrutiny and debate. Some argue they are the best evidence of Yeti's existence, while others contend the prints are those of a mundane creature that have been distorted by the melting snow. Peter Byrne reported finding a Yeti footprint in 1948 in northern Sikkim, India, near the Zimu Glacier, while on holiday from a Royal Air Force assignment in India. In 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary in Tenzing Norgay reported seeing large footprints while scaling Mount Everest. Hillary would later discount Yeti reports as unreliable. In his first autobiography, Tenzing said that he believed the Yeti was a large ape, and although he had never seen it himself, his father had seen one twice, but in his second autobiography, he said he had become much more skeptical about its existence. During the Daily Mail Snowmen expedition of 1951, the mountaineering leader John Angelo Jackson made the first trek from Everest to Kanchenjunga, in the course of which he photographed symbolic paintings of the Yeti at Tengbosch Gompa. Jackson tracked and photographed many footprints in the snow, most of which were identifiable. However, there were many large footprints which could not be identified. These flattened footprint-like indentations were attributed to erosion and subsequent widening of the original footprint by wind and particles. On the 19th of March 1954, the Daily Mail printed an article which described expedition teams obtaining hair specimens from what was alleged to be a Yeti scalp found in the Pangbosh Monastery. The hairs were black to dark brown in colour in dim light and fox red in sunlight. The hair was analysed by Professor Frederick Wood Jones, an expert in human and comparative anatomy. During the study, the hairs were bleached, cut into sections, and analysed microscopically. The research consisted of taking microphotographs of the hairs and comparing them with hairs from known animals such as bears and orangutans. Jones concluded that the hairs were not actually from a scalp. He contended that while some animals do have a ridge of hair extending from the pate to the back, no animals have a ridge, as in the pangboche scalp, running from the base of the forehead across the pate and ending at the nape of the neck. Jones was unable to pinpoint exactly the animal from which the pangboche hairs were taken. He was, however, convinced that the hairs were not from a bear or anthropoid ape, but instead from the shoulder of a coarse-haired, hoofed animal. Sloromir Warwick claimed in his book The Long Walk, published in 1956, that as he and some others were crossing the Himalayas in the winter of 1940, their path was blocked for hours by two bipedal animals that were doing seemingly nothing but shuffling around in the snow. Beginning in 1957, the Texas oil businessman and adventurer Tom Slick led an expedition to the Nepal Himalayas to investigate Yeti reports, with the anthropologist Professor Carlton S. Kuhn as one of its members. In 1959, supposed Yeti feces were collected by one of Slick's expeditions. Fecal analysis found a parasite which could not be classified. There's a citation needed there. The United States government thought that finding the Yeti was likely enough to create free rules for American expeditions searching for it. Obtain a Nepalese permit, do not harm the Yeti except in self-defense, and let the Nepalese government approve any news reporting on the animal's discovery. In 1959, actor James Stewart, while visiting India, reportedly smuggled the so-called pangboche hand by concealing it in his luggage when he flew from India to London. In 1960, Sir Edmund Hillary mounted the 1960-61 Silverheart expedition to the Himalayas, which was to collect and analyze physical evidence of the Yeti. Hillary borrowed a supposed Yeti scalp from the Kumjung monastery, then himself and Kumjo Chumbi, the village headman, brought the scalp back to London, where a small sample was cut off for testing. Master Burns made a detailed examination of the sample of skin and hair from the margin of the alleged Yeti scalp and compared it with similar samples from the Sero, Blue Bear, and Black Bear. For those who don't know, a Sero, a S-E-R-O-W, that's a kind of a goat-looking creature from the Himalayas. There you go. Burns concluded the sample was probably made from the skin of an animal closely resembling the sampled specimen of Sero, but definitely not identical with it, possibly a local variety or race of the same species, or a different but closely related species. Up to the 1960s, belief in the Yeti was relatively common in Bhutan, and in 1966 a Bhutanese stamp was made to honour the creature. However, in the 21st century, belief in the being has declined. In 1970, British mountaineer Don Willans claimed to have witnessed a creature when scaling Annapurna. He reported that he once saw it moving on all fours. In 1983, Himalayan conservationist Daniel C. Taylor and Himalayan natural historian Robert L. Fleming Jr. led a Yeti expedition into Nepal's Barun Valley, suggested by discovery in the Barun in 1972 of footprints alleged to be Yeti by Cronin and McNeely. The Taylor-Fleming expedition also discovered similar Yeti-like footprints, hominid appearing with both a hallux and bipedal gait, intriguing large nests in trees, and vivid reports from local villages of two bears, Ruk Balu, tree bear, small reclusive, weighing about 150 pounds, 70 kilograms, and Bui Balu, ground bear, aggressive, weighing up to 400 pounds, 180 kilograms. Further interviews across Nepal gave evidence of local belief in two different bears. Skulls were collected. These were compared to known skulls at the Smithsonian Institution, American Museum of Natural History, and British Museum, and confirmed identification of a single species, the Asiatic black bear, showing no morphological difference between tree bear and ground bear. This despite an intriguing skull in the British Museum of a tree bear, collected in 1869 by Oldham and discussed in the Annals of the Royal Zoological Society. In 2004, Henry G., editor of the journal Nature, mentioned the Yeti as an example of folk belief deserving further study, writing, "The discovery that Homo floresiensis survived until so very recently, in geological terms, makes it more likely that stories of other mythical, human-like creatures such as Yetis are founded on grains of truth." In early December 2007, American television presenter Joshua Gates and his team, Destination Truth, reported finding a series of footprints in the Everest region of Nepal resembling descriptions of Yeti. Each of the footprints measured 33 centimeters, 13 inches in length, with 5 toes that measured a total of 25 centimeters, 9.8 inches across. Casts were made of the prints for further research. The footprints were examined by Jeffrey Meldrum of Idaho State University, who believed them to be too morphologically accurate to be fake or man-made before changing his mind after making further investigations. Later in 2009, in a TV show, Gates presented hair samples of a forensic analyst, concluding that the hair contained an unknown DNA sequence. On the 25th of July 2008, the BBC reported that hairs collected in the remote Garo Hills area of northeast India by Deepu Marak had been analysed at Oxford Brookes University in the UK by primatologist Anna Nakaris and microscopy expert John Wells. These initial tests were inconclusive, and ape conservation expert Ian Redmond told the BBC that there was similarity between the cuticle pattern of these hairs and specimens collected by Edmund Hillary during Himalayan expeditions in the 1950s and donated to the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, and announced planned DNA analysis. This analysis has since revealed that the hair came from the Himalayan goral. Goral. That's another kind of goat. Bovid. A group of Chinese scientists and explorers in 2010 proposed to renew searches in the Xinongji-Gija forestry district of Hubei province, which was the site of expeditions in the 1970s and 1980s. At a 2011 conference in Russia, participating scientists and enthusiasts declared having 95% evidence of the Yeti's existence. However, this claim was disputed later. American anthropologist and anatomist Jeffrey Meldrum, who was present during the Russian expedition, claimed the evidence found was simply an attempt by local officials to drum up publicity. A Yeti was reportedly captured in Russia in December 2011. Initially, the story claimed that a hunter reported having seen a bear-like creature trying to kill one of his sheep, but after he fired his gun, the creature ran into a forest on 2 legs. The story then claimed that Border Patrol soldiers captured a hairy 2-legged female creature similar to a gorilla that ate meat and vegetation. This was later revealed to be as a hoax or possibly a publicity stunt for charity. In April 2019, an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team claimed to have spotted mysterious Yeti footprints measuring 81 by 38 centimeters, 32 by 15 inches, near the Makalu base camp. Who knows, I think it would have been found by now. In any case, we don't want to go over copyright requirements, so thanks again, my good and dear friends. Appreciate it immensely. Next time we'll be discussing the Ice Warriors. Hopefully more exciting than this. Well, this has been pretty good, I think. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you're so inclined what you think.